You're listening to another ambitious Entrepreneur Network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, daily conversations with Christian entrepreneurs to inspire and empower Christian business owners to walk strongly in their faith, while build a thriving business that honors Him in every way. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast. This is episode 54, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, the podcasting queen. Now, our guest today says that when you surrender your life and your business completely to God, you will be on the most amazing ride of your life. Now, as a Christian entrepreneur, let me ask you, have you surrendered your life and business to God? Joining me on today's show is Diana House. Diana is a Canadian Christian serial entrepreneur in the e-commerce and real estate space who has been honoured as a top entrepreneur in Canada in the W100 and has done a deal on Dragon's Den, that's Canada's Shark Tank version, and she has also scaled a business past the 7 figures mark. Now, Diana's business, Church Jewelry, is on a mission to serve the modern Christian woman through beautiful jewelry that is soaked in devotion and meaning. Now, on today's show, Diana's going to share her diverse experience, which taps over nearly a decade in e-commerce and real estate. She's also going to share her experiences through challenges that have strengthened her faith and her wisdom. And she's also going to share tips as a master delegator, strong at financial systems and so forth. Delegation, I think, is so important in our business. So welcome to the show, Diana.
Thank you so much for having me, and greetings to Australia.
And before we hit record, you mentioned that you had spent some time living in the Gold Coast. So you know Australia and the culture very well.
Yes, I absolutely love Australia. We actually went there for our honeymoon, and my husband also loves Australia. I think he dreams of one day owning some property in Kira, which is a beautiful surf break in Queensland. So that's on our, I think, 10-year trajectory maybe. So you may be seeing me back in Australia.
Wonderful. Would love to connect in person. As you can imagine, I have interviewed so many incredible guests, other Christian entrepreneurs, and I said we may never meet this side of heaven, but certainly we can catch up and connect the other side in heaven alongside Jesus as well. So creating lots of great friendships that way. So Diana, as we mentioned in the introduction, you've got a diverse background in entrepreneurship. Take us back to, have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Was it something that you saw model? Were your family members entrepreneur? How did you get into running your own business?
Yes, so I do come from a family of entrepreneurs. So both of my parents were immigrants from Poland to Canada. I wish they went from Poland to Australia, but you know, we got the colder country. Yes. And so, my dad was actually a manager in manufacturing and then ended up buying out the company that he was working for and then growing and selling several companies. My mom as well was an entrepreneur in real estate, as well as she owned, a deli back in the day. So I was very much around entrepreneurship growing up, but entrepreneurship, I don't know if you found this, it wasn't really a word back then.
No.
There wasn't this you could be an entrepreneur. It wasn't really a box.
It's trendy now, isn't it, to be an entrepreneur almost, isn't it?
Totally. I do think it is trendy, which is an interesting opportunity in the marketplace. But yeah, at the time, it wasn't really something that I really thought about, even though I was surrounded by, these amazing entrepreneurial parents. And I remember when I was, at the guidance counselor in university, it was definitely not something that was discussed as a potential path. And so because of that, when I was growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So in high school, I was very into sport. I ended up playing rugby in university. And so, sports were really my main focus. And I never really focused on what I wanted to do, which to the horror of my parents. after finishing, high school, I ended up being very lost in university and ended up going to 3 different universities in undergrad. And trying to find my path, and first studying kind of very general things, then looking into journalism actually, and then just ending up finally going to the guidance counselor in third year and saying, like, I just need to finish my undergrad degree. Here are my credits. What should I finish with? So finally I finished with a degree in English, cultural studies, and critical theory, which didn't really open up anything. And my father suggested that I go to law school. And I didn't have a better plan, so ended up doing that, but compromised with going to law school in Australia, which definitely made law school a lot more entertaining. And it wasn't until after law school that time was up. I couldn't keep going to school any longer, and I really knew that law was not for me. And after law school, I applied to, I think, about 200 different positions to get a job. And it was 2008, and I was living in a town where I didn't know anyone. And believe it or not, I couldn't get an interview, which was very weird for me because I had been employed my whole life, and I knew I was quite intelligent. I knew I was educated. And because of that, I went to a job fair where they were giving out grants for people to start their own business. And it was one of those things, I had a chat with them, and I was like, you're going to give me money to start a company? And I was like, you know what, this one path is not happening, this getting a job thing, so maybe I need to explore, like, maybe God is guiding me towards this. And so that's kind of how I ended up starting my first business. I was very much an accidental entrepreneur based on necessity and survival. And once I started my first business, which was another jewelry company actually, it was very clear to other people that I was quite good at marketing. And then I had people start coming to me and be like, oh, can you help me out with marketing and things like that. So I somehow had to be in kind of a business for the outside world to kind of realize that I had skills in that space.
Yes. Look, thank goodness. I mean, thank you for sharing that. And there's elements of that I recognize in other interviews that I've heard and that I've had, where people have gone into a corporate role, yet found that they were always restless. They butted their heads with the team and maybe even with the supervisor, and really never felt that they fit. And it wasn't until they then started up their own business that they realized, wow, there was so much more freedom. And for people who will understand that, they'll know this, because there's so many different things that we need to do within our own business, juggle a lot of balls in the air, but it's different than working for someone else and just completely different lifestyle. But entrepreneurship here in Australia is now being taught, or entrepreneurial skills is being taught, because even in schools are now starting to say that the job market, corporate, it's going to look so much different, in that a lot of people won't be employed full time, but will need to think and see themselves more as contractors, and will need to market themselves a lot better for different, roles and jobs, which is a little bit different than, say, in business themselves, but they themselves will be promoting. So that's kind of where we're seeing Australia head. So let's talk about your diverse experience. So you started off with the jewelry company, then you were then so that was the e-commerce, and then real estate. Was that because your father, I think you mentioned, had been in real estate? That was something that you were interested in. How did that pan out?
Yeah, no, so my father was not in real estate. So I actually married into real estate, which is so funny because as a teenager and in my early 20s, I've always journaled. And in my journaling, I would often journal about real estate. So I always had this knowing that real estate would be a part of my life, but I just never really had, my mom did do some real estate growing up, but more she was a residential real estate agent. But real estate wasn't, a core part of our family's business or success. And when I met my husband, he actually had cold called me about real estate space because my business needed new office space, and he had found out through the grapevine. So our first meeting and phone call was like a business call, which is so funny. And I remember when I met my husband and we had this first meeting, which I thought was a business meeting. We decided that we would do a real estate deal, a development deal together, which is like so crazy now that I think about it. And that first development deal ended up becoming our first home in the future as kind of things progressed. So yes, my husband is also an entrepreneur. He is just a very gifted entrepreneur, creative deal maker. And so on the real estate side, our main focus is actually financing. So we do private lending to entrepreneurs that banks won't finance. So for instance, in Canada, I don't know what it is like in Australia, if you were to build a skyscraper, a bank would not likely give you the money to be able to do that. Or if you were purchasing land or a different kind of commercial stuff. So we finance those kind of projects. It's a very fascinating business because you're essentially enabling other entrepreneurs to soar. So we do that. We have our own asset management portfolio. So we, buy amazing, commercial buildings and manage them. We used to do residential, but we've kind of liquidated most of our residential portfolio. And then we've done some development, and my husband still does commercial tenancy as well. So if you're an entrepreneur, in Canada, he will, find you an amazing space, whether that's to buy a building or lease a building.
Yeah, fantastic. Isn't it interesting how when you were at the start of that journey, you would have had no idea that God was going to lead you down through that first joint venture to your own home. And it's interesting when you look backwards, and I think just Steve Jobs said so well, it's not till you do turn backwards you can join the dots, but how often God will plant seeds, will have us meet people. When you said cold calling, I thought hopefully not cold calling for a date. Hey, but that obviously then led to a date, and things progressed from there. So you just don't know where God is starting to work, and the people that he puts in your path, along your journey, that really will support you into building lots of great opportunities. So talk about then some of the key things you've learned over that time, maybe even in the viewpoint of some of the things that you see entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with. Were there some key insights that you learned that you're now using in your now jewelry business?
I mean, so many insights, just anything with regards to entrepreneurship.
Well, I think, one of the things, and this speaks into one of the areas that you wanted to, so this might segue really well, some of the challenges, because I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes when we do hit challenges, and sometimes a challenge after a challenge after a challenge, it can have us go, really doubt and become so disappointed that we're not building the momentum and achieving the goals, that it will almost have us go, what, this is obviously not for me, we give up. But actually, we're building the strength, or God is having us build the strength that we need for the next season of our business. So if we were to have the success we dream about, we don't have the resources, the foundations in place. How has that panned out for you?
Sure, yeah. So I guess on a very personal level, my faith has evolved a lot during my 10 years of entrepreneurship. And I think as that has got stronger and stronger, and I've gone from being more personally led to spirit-led, I just feel like I'm in a place now where I want to take more risks, and I feel like God is guiding that. And I think, to be an entrepreneur, you have to take risks, and I think it's something that people are so scared of. And I'm naturally a very risk-adverse person. And so as I've matured in my faith and matured as an entrepreneur, I'm way more drawn to taking risks and way more drawn to being in the game and being in the arena. And so, I mean, with the new company, we just did a planning session actually with another Christian entrepreneur who you should definitely have on. I have suggested the podcast. And when we wrote out our mission, our goal is, I had written down for our 10-year vision to impact 5 million Christian women. By the end of the planning session, he put a 2 in front of that, and it was to impact 25 million Christian women. And that's massive, and so when he wrote that down, I was like, wow, okay, who am I going to have to be to spearhead this vision, and like, that can't be a me thing. Like, that's a pure God thing. Like, God has to be my CEO. God has to be my business partner, if that's really what our mission is. And if we're going to be able to do that, because like, Diana on my own, like I've gone through that. Oh, what can I accomplish on my own? And like, it's pretty cool, but it's like nothing. It's like, it's nothing compared to what like I can do in God's strength.
Yes.
So I mean, on a personal faith level, I mean, that would be it. On a technical entrepreneur, level, I mean, I guess it's almost related. I think being like community made versus self-made is so important to me. So, at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, part of it was I just didn't know that many other entrepreneurs. But I really did try to be self-sufficient. Whereas now I'm all about community and all about surrounding myself with experts and people who've done it before and who are, much better than me in their zones of genius. And I'm very focused on like, what are the gifts that God has given me? What are my zones of genius? How can I stay in just that? And surround myself with people who complement that. So for me personally, I'm very strong at product, marketing, and finance. And so outside of that, I literally try to do nothing. Like I literally try not to touch any other business areas. I'll either hire that or get mentors on the other areas, or specifically with CJ, churchstory.com. I'm actually looking for a business partner on the e-commerce growth hacking side, because that's just not really what I'm best in the world at. So that would be a big piece, as well as, I mean, I think the delegating does come hand in hand.
Yes.
For me, I learned very early on that it's just impossible to do everything yourself.
Yeah, totally.
And in order to scale, you need to, outsource all these different tasks that, it doesn't make sense for you to do. And so, within, my businesses, I'm not operational. I'm not day to day, just because, again, that's not my zone of genius. I have an integrator who is like an operations manager who runs all the day-to-day stuff and runs the team, because again, that's not my forte. And then I have things like a standard operating procedure. I know you're very good at systems. Even just signing up for this podcast, I could tell, I'm like, oh, Anne-Marie, she's got her systems dialed in. It's so important. You need those things to run a company, and it's not that hard to like create a manual for every role, and have those systems, and then making sure that they're enforced.
Yes.
But those are kind of some of the key things that I've learned are just like so integral to a healthy foundation of a scalable company.
Yeah, look, brilliant insights in that. And let me just unpack a little bit, because for some people as entrepreneurs, we're really hesitant. It's scary to bring people on. So maybe if you're, joint venturing or you're hiring someone to step in, once you've done that though, and it's flowing smoothly, isn't it such a great feeling? It's like, I'm sitting here and my team is doing stuff I used to do. You really can then focus, as you said, on your zone of genius, which allows you to be so much more productive and continue to build the momentum of your business. For you, what was the stage? Do you just go, right, I need support in this area. It's not one that I even want to try to dabble in, so I'm going to look for someone or ask for someone to step in? Or do you start to do that role yourself, create systems and processes, then once you know that it's running smoothly, then you look for someone to outsource and delegate that to? Or is it a balance of both of those?
Yeah, for me, it's been a balance of both. I mean, at the beginning, of course, I did everything for everything, so, and then I would, create the manuals from there and delegate them on. Now that I feel like I'm more seasoned, even with new companies, I literally look at them almost more like upstarts than startups. Like, I'm like, okay, I have, a capital foundation. I know what I'm doing. I have this plan. I just need to execute. A lot of things I just won't even step into. I'll bring people on who've done it before. That's kind of the ideal situation. And one of my goals, and I mean, and it's not like a literal thing, but I had this goal of being like the dumbest person in the organization. How can I just surround myself with people who are so much smarter than me in every area, that I literally know nothing. And I literally strive to know as little as I can sometimes, because I have a lot of energy and I'm very intense. And sometimes I will cross over those boundaries that I shouldn't even be involved in. And so, yeah, I've learned to just aspire to not be the smartest person within the organization.
You've been permission to go, Diana, I've got it covered.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me, this is something that I'm learning, so I'm getting better at. But, as entrepreneurs, what we tend to do is have things really mapped out, and you want to have a solid plan in place. But, as we're reminded in the Bible, God has our future. And when we try and assume too much control, and this is talking into the surrendering piece, we then allow God to bring the super, and this is not my term, this is what I've heard other people say, bring his super into our natural partner, and then we really get those supernatural results that, as you said, they're just not possible for you to generate that kind of impact and momentum. You really can see that it's been God's hand in that. What do you do? Is it something that you've learned or developed and been able to grow, or is this a work in progress for you too?
Yes, I feel like this is definitely something I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis right now, and it's so cool. Like, it's so cool, and it's so crazy, and like, I don't even know how many times a day I'm like, wow, like, this is just like I can't even explain it. It's like when you're in that like spirit-led space, and it's just unfolding for you, and people are just appearing, and opportunities are just appearing. Like, even the person who helped me with our planning, he is literally like the best in the world at planning. Like, and he's also a believer, runs a massive organization. I think they're on their way to do like 100 million.
Wow.
And so for him to be like, hey, I'm going to run you through your planning, like, was just such a gift, because you can't pay people like that to help you.
Yes.
Like, those people aren't consultants, they're business builders. And so when we mapped out the first 365 with this person who's like literally best in the world at doing that, you're just like, wow, like God is just all over all of this. And yeah, just like, even from like who our first model was for the shoot, like it's all God, and they're just all like the most amazing people. Are coming out of the woodworks to bring this project to this like ridiculous high level. And I mean, like I've built successful businesses before, but nothing that's ever felt like this. This feels way outside the realm of anything I've ever felt. And yeah, every day, and I'm journaling, and I'm just like, this all feels supernatural. Like, this is all God. I'm just trying not to get in the way. Like, I'm just, facilitating.
Sometimes what happens to me, and I often have to check in with myself and have a bit of a laugh internally, is that, as we say, God is the CEO. And so sometimes, I pray in the morning, but then you also have little prayers where you might just pray over something that you're working on. And then you kind of start, that conversation, and, if you can do this, and then you kind of sit back and go, hang on a minute, did you just, and it's really, did you just, what is it, the word I'm looking for, give God some steps and things like that. Don't you think he's got it covered? And it's kind of like, okay, let me step back. I'll just sit here and do what I know to do well. It's kind of, I think he knows what he needs to do. There's no sense and, point in giving him the steps to lay out. So,
yes. And it's weird, because I'm definitely like a recovering like over functioner. And it's weird, I'm not really trying. I mean, I'm working very hard, and I'm very dedicated, and I'm very focused, but it's very organic. Like, God is literally leading the ship, and I'm just like listening and kind of going, where he says.
Yes.
It's very, very cool.
Absolutely. So what are some plans? Share a little bit more about your business, maybe a couple of plans that you are really aiming towards, and how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. So again, our mission, our 10-year mission is to unite and elevate 25 million. Every time I say it, I'm like, modern pioneering women. And so, yeah, the segment of the market that we really want to kind of show up for and serve is just really like the modern Christian woman. I feel like it's a very underserviced market with products and services and really all the things. And so we're really a media first, product second business. The jewelry is really like our entryway just because I have a lot of experience in jewelry. And shockingly, like there's no cool Christian jewelry company yet. You know, so I feel like church is really going to meet those kind of needs in the marketplace, but I feel like there's going to be so much more to that in different product segments and different like content. I mean, and this is a weird kind of comparison, but I almost see us being like the Christian women's like Goop, almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with Gwyneth Paltrow's company. You know, she's the go-to for people who love her, but like it's content and product. So it's going to really be all of those things and very much community focused.
Yes.
So very much championing Christian women and then connecting them as well. So yeah, we're going to do e-commerce is really going to be our main channel. But we're also currently working on some plans to potentially do a direct selling model as part of the company. Because, and again, it started with the mission, because the mission is really about uniting and elevating. And once we started building out the business plan from that, we're like, well, what does that look like? You know, we want Christian women to meet together and also, you know, connect and spread these products. So we're currently working on that. We're about 3 months away from, we're actually going to be launching with a Kickstarter. So that's very exciting. I have some experience with Kickstarters and, you know, that's going to be really, really fun just to really rally and gather the community. And then we'll be doing our e-commerce launch about a month out from that. And then, yeah, we see church being very multifaceted. So doing a lot of events, potentially some books and workbooks and things like that. So, and then obviously some amazing jewelry. But as you can tell, the jewelry is almost secondary to the mission of the biz.
Yeah, it looks so exciting. And, you know, do come back and share, reach out to Melissa, our guest coordinator, to share the journey from Kickstarter and so forth, because I think, you know, one of the incredible things that we love to do is share these stories because of the fact that it is connecting as well, and hearing how people did things, some of the challenges they overcame. Because, you know, I think sometimes as business owners, we do live in a silo, you know, or what happens is we do go to networking events and we've got great relationships that we're building, but sometimes we think we're the only ones that are struggling. We're the only ones that have launched a campaign. We put everything behind it and it didn't work, you know, it didn't work, and crickets. And so we have that kind of, well, maybe I'm the only one experiencing it. Yet when you build that community and you share the tips and you share your highs and your lows and say, you know what, but we need to remain focused. We need to commit it to prayer. Then we realize, you know what, collaboratively, I think this is just so much bigger, and we're really sensing that. So love for you to come back on the show. What's the URL? What's the best way to actually connect with you?
Yeah, so right now the best way to connect with us is through church jewelry. So our email is tribe@churchjewelry.com.
Fantastic. And we'll, of course, put all of those links as well and your other social media links on our show notes. To get to the show notes, ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE54. And when we recorded this, we also recorded it via video and streamed it on Facebook. So if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, come across through to the show notes and you'll be able to see Diana as she shared her insights today. One of the things that I'm doing for all of our guests, Diana, is just ending the show with a word of prayer. May I do that for you today?
Love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Father God, thank you so much for the time that we've spent with Diana today, hearing about the vision and the mission that she has to unite and to empower 25 million Christian owners, Christian business owners, Christian women. Lord, when we identify and we put to paper these goals, sometimes it has us take a step back and take a deep breath in. But we know with you as CEO, we know when we lean into you and we really commit to build a kingdom-focused business, business, those goals are just, they're done. You've already got the plans in place, the people, the resources all laid out. So we ask for your continued blessing on her business partners, her husband, all of the ventures and the people involved. Continue to grow that from strength to strength, and the people that she is meeting, that they be empowered in and through you. Father, we also pray for those who are listening and viewing today. We pray that they'll be able to take the insights, reconnect with you again, Lord, and surrender their goals, their plans to you, so that we can focus on what you've gifted us with and allow other people to support us in our business, so we can continue to scale them, to grow them, all in honor of you, Father, to build our kingdom globally. Father, we pray this in the precious name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Thank you so much, Diana. You really are an inspiration. And, you know, one of the goals that we have for our network, the podcast network globally, is to impact 1 billion people around the globe. You know, impact, making a difference, being the difference, changing the world one message at a time. And it's like, if people that such as yourself, like if I was to think me on my own, there's just no way. But when we meet people such as yourself and other incredible business owners who then have got their community, we really can you know, collaboratively make such an incredible difference. And when we can share the love of Jesus along the way, I think that yeah, that's my goal. So thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And that's just a beautiful vision.
Yes, thank you.
You've been listening to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, brought to you by BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. Changing the world one message at a time. Do you feel called to influence real change with your message? Join our supportive community of like-minded influencers, thought leaders, and disruptors at www.BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. That's BeTheDifferenceMovement.com.